There is nothing worse than realizing that the curriculum that you chose to educate your child has actually been failing him. After 18 years of homeschooling 11 children, I've thrown out more curriculum than I care to admit. But today I'm pulling back the curtain and showing you exactly which curriculum I'm using for teaching my children how to read fluently and well, and also the math curriculum that we use. Because it finally works. I found something that I love. The reading curriculum I've been using for a really long time. The math curriculum, we've been using it for 3 years now. No intention of changing whatsoever. And spoiler alert, one of the most popular reading curriculums, I hear people say they're using it all the time. I absolutely hated it. So we'll talk about that too. But first, before we get started, if your homeschool feels off, if you feel behind, if you feel constantly overwhelmed, I created a 5-day free homeschool rescue plan just for you. It will show you how to reset your homeschool without starting over. The link's down below in the description box. Okay, let's dig into this. Let's start by talking about what didn't work. And to be fair, I only used this with one child. I gave it a solid year, and I really felt like it was going to work. This was with my first child. I was I read the introduction of this book and I was so enamored by the idea that my child would be reading in 100 easy lessons and would probably be a child prodigy. He would be amazing. He'd probably graduate by the time he was 12. All of those things. I believed it, hook, line, and sinker. I hated 100 easy lessons. I don't like the way that it doesn't teach children to read with like real letters in the very beginning. It has these weird transition letters that are just confusing. Why would you teach a child to read with letters that aren't actual real letters and then change them over to the real ones later on? It didn't make sense to me. And my child was not getting it at all. And I mean, we worked on it, because remember, I wanted a child prodigy here. So we worked on it for a solid year with very few results and a confused child. So I gave it the college try and threw it away, and haven't touched it since. So, what I actually found after discarding 100 Easy Lessons was a book called Reading Pathways. Now, what I love about Reading Pathways is that, like 100 Easy Lessons, it is just a book. It's not a whole lot of, there's no gimmicks, there's no doodads, there's no apps you have to get. It's just a book. And I have actually had to buy two of them, and I should buy another one now because it's falling apart. Do you see how well used this is? This is our second one. Um, I think I probably should just buy a new one for George and Mary Eleanor. But it's fantastic. The lessons are self-contained. You don't have to get anything new. Now, there are some things that you can do. I'm looking through it right now, like trying to find you a page. There are some things that you can do if your child is having trouble with different concepts, like learning the letter sounds or blending. There are some games in here that you can photocopy and do. So I've taught now 9 of my 11 children how to read. George is in process right now. But 9 of them are readers now. All of them use this book to learn how to read. And I've only had one child that has needed the games. I had one child that it was just a harder for him and he needed more reinforcement and everything. He's the only one that needed those games. So, if you have a normal reader, then it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But like this is a beginning lesson, right? So, I mean, this takes less than 10 minutes and you really don't need to do more than 1 page per day. They do have another book called Reading something else. I don't remember now. I don't remember what the second book is called. It's like the sequel to the first book. But if you have a child that is struggling with fluency, you can use that book. I have it, but I think I loaned it to somebody. I don't have it right now. But I will link both of those books in the description box below if you want to take it out. But I cannot recommend this program more thoroughly. It's just a solid program and it's simple. You don't need to be cutting out a bunch of stuff. You don't have to put a game together every single day. This is open and shut. Very easy. Now, once my kids know all of the letter sounds and they have started blending, what I do for reading practice is the pathway readers, which are not affiliated with Reading Pathways, funnily enough. So these are actually produced by Rod and Staff, and they are very I think they're actually Amish or Mennonite readers, but they're very simple stories. They all have they're very sweet stories. There's, it talks about lying and stealing and like all of those things. My kids actually really enjoy reading these books. And so for first grade, there are 3 or 4 of these that they go through and just read, a story a day. With some of my kids to start out, what we would do is actually read each story twice. So we'd read, let's say we read it for the first time on Monday, we would read it a second time on Tuesday, just until they're really comfortable. Because, there are sight words that you just have to memorize. And so, that's part of, building fluency is repeating. So sometimes we would even need to read it a third time. So I don't really set a timeline on getting through these. It's just at the child's pace. But could not recommend the Pathway Readers more. I've literally had these since my first child. I bought the whole set. And I mean, this one's kind of falling apart. Actually, I did have to replace one of them, the blue one that comes after the red one. But they're great books. They're very sweet, very simple. It's black and white images, so very simple. Very, very solid books. So that is what we do for our reading. Okay, let's talk about math disasters. First of all, teaching textbooks. I know that there are people out there who absolutely love teaching textbooks. I loved teaching textbooks for probably the first year and a half that we used it. I thought that this is a theme with me. I think my kids are going to be prodigies. I felt like my kids were going to be math prodigies because we could get through like 2 lessons a day, and it was fun, and the kids love doing it because, it's very gamified. There's lots of bells and whistles. Like it literally, things whistle when you like do well. So the kids really enjoy doing it. So I was like, oh my gosh, my kids are going to be done with pre-calculus when they're 13. That was the hope and that was the dream, and it came crashing down. So the great part about teaching textbooks is that it is completely hands off. The bad part about teaching textbooks is that it is completely hands off. Okay. So what do you mean, Ashley? Well, what I mean is that, it is one of those tools that will basically buy back mom's time. It does the teaching, it does the grading, it does the testing. You literally have to do nothing. The problem with that is unless you are extraordinarily disciplined, you are not going to know what your child is actually struggling with. Um, and it's very lax grading. If I remember correctly, they let your child retake tests, like redo answers and things. So, I mean, in Ashley's world, if you get the answer wrong on the test, it's wrong on the test. You don't get to try again. In teaching textbooks world, that is actually not true. There might be a way to change that. I don't really know. But let's just say this. The kids were not doing as well as I thought that they were doing. The kids were not remembering concepts because there was no review built into it. Or if there was review, when they would finally get to it, they wouldn't remember how to do it. So then I would have to teach, which means it's not hands off anymore. I started hearing some rumblings in the homeschool community about how teaching textbooks is really not a very rigorous math curriculum. And, I was like, well, if my kids are going to be prodigies and finish pre-calculus at the age of 13, how can this be true? So I started digging deeper, and turns out, yeah, that was right. So then we switched to Saxon. Basically, we went from one side of the pendulum to the other. Now, Saxon has a fantastic reputation. I really have no beef with Saxon. It has worked extremely well for my children that are more mathy naturally. I have a daughter and a son who are still in Saxon. And when I offered them the opportunity to use something else, they said, no, absolutely not. They were going to stay. There are certain things about Saxon that they enjoy making fun of. And they felt that they would lose that if they left. And they're both making A's in math. So I said that they could stay. Now we paired up Saxon with Nicole the math lady. Nicole the math lady is a lovely woman who has basically made a math lesson for every Saxon test. And she, for the most part, does a good job of explaining everything. My kids really didn't have much beef with that. The problem is the Saxon in and of itself for a child who is not as math inclined is going to be a struggle. And for my children who are not as math inclined, it is a struggle. It was a struggle. It was very frustrating for them. And the Nicole the math lady instruction was not enough. So The other problem with Nicole the Math Lady, again, this is a double-edged sword because it is both wonderful and horrifying at the same time, is that you can just check out. Um, she actually makes you set how many times you want to allow your children to retake, a math test or, redo homework or anything. Like, you have to do that going in. So she doesn't let you just completely check out. But it's still hard to stay on top of it. It is hard as a human being, as a mother, to make myself go check and make sure that they are doing well when I know that Nicole the Math Lady has it covered and she's checking everything. My brain just prioritizes things like, well, I've got a fire over here. Let me go put out this fire. Math can wait for for those kids. So I don't love it for that reason. I feel like, for me personally, for my personality, I need to be involved daily in my children's math so that I know what they're struggling with. If you are more disciplined than me, and I'm not saying that you're not, like, I know that there are plenty of people that are more disciplined than I am, then that kind of program can be great for you. It just wasn't working any longer for the children in my home that need some extra help with math. So what are we doing now? We've been doing this for the last 3 years. We're finishing up our third year with Rod and Staff for the elementary grades and Memoria Press's new algebra programs for the middle school kids. So this has been working really, really well because I have to check it every day. There is no computer program for Rod and Staff. It's a Mennonite company, and so they don't do that. Which, some days I'm like, I don't have time to check math, but this is part of my job. And if I don't check the math, first of all, they're not going to know what they got wrong. Second of all, I'm not going to know what they got wrong. So this is actually a great way to make sure that the children are doing well in math and continue to do well in math, is that I have to be involved. And this is just what I need. You may not need that. And if you don't need that, then definitely check out Saxon and Nicole the Math Lady. But for me, this was exactly what I needed. And my child that was struggling with math has done so well with Rod and Staff. It's, it really, it hits on multiplication, math, division, subtraction drills, like, so much. Like, you have to learn these facts. And there's, so there's all sorts of different math drills they're doing. And I will say, on top of all of the math drills, we actually also do extra math, and that's spelled XTRAMATH. That is, I'll put the link in the description box below. That is actually, it's free. I couldn't remember what I was trying to say. It's free, which is fantastic. They will let you put all of your kids in it. There's no ads. Like, I have no idea how they're making money off of this, but there's different levels. So it starts them off at memorizing all of their math facts, one at a time. So addition first, then subtraction, then multiplication, then division. It starts them off at 6 seconds. So they have to get it in under each one in under 6 seconds. Okay. So then once you go through all of those, then you have to do it at 3 seconds. So it's basically like starting over, and, having it in 3 seconds and having your math facts memorized cold in 3 seconds or less, it helps them so much with math later on. So it's super duper important. And that one is a little computer thing. The good thing about extra math is that it doesn't let you just keep doing it. You get to do one lesson a day. The lessons are less than 10 minutes. It's not lessons. It's just, going through facts and everything. So you can't do it for more than, so there's no gaming the system, is what I'm trying to say. We have used that for probably 10 years now. Like, all of my kids have gone through extra math to learn their facts, and it's really been helpful for us. So then in the 7th grade, we moved to Memoria Press Math. They just started making their own math curriculum for middle school and up a few years ago. So there's only 3 levels out so far. I believe it's pre-algebra, algebra 1, and algebra 2. It's classical, it's structured, and it makes sense to my brain. And honestly, it's the first upper level math curriculum that I've actually gotten. And when us moms understand it, it makes it so much easier to explain it to the children. Those do come with streaming videos, so the lesson is taught. So that is perfect as I relearn all of this math that I've forgotten over the years, to have a teacher doing the lesson, but mom has to check it, which is the key for me. I know that not every mom wants to have to do that. For me, though, I have just found that it is essential. By the way, if this feels all a little too familiar, You're not alone. That's exactly why I made the Homeschool Rescue Plan. 5 days, totally free. The link's below in the description box. Okay, so even with the right curriculum and even with a better plan, there was still one thing keeping our homeschool from thriving. And it took me way too long to see it. The biggest mistake that I made was not just the curriculum. It was the idea that once a system is in place, I can just step away from it. But when I took my hands off, my kids looked like they were doing fine. I didn't see the actual struggle until they were behind. Being hands on again, not as a micromanager, but as a mentor, it changed everything. And again, now I know where their weaknesses are. I can reinforce the hard parts. And I see their confidence go up, not because I'm just checking boxes. I'm actually teaching. This didn't just change our academics, it actually changed the atmosphere of our home. You don't have to get everything right, but you do need to get the right things right. When your curriculum works and when you're consistent, your kids thrive. When you, mom, stay involved, the learning gaps shrink. If you're still trying to figure that out, go grab my Homeschool Rescue Plan. It will help you reset your homeschool with peace and purpose. If you haven't seen my video yet about the 5 lies that homeschool influencers are trying to push, go watch that next. I'll link it in the end screen.